Hey, welcome to round 2 of this Blue-White Spirit Delver list. We're on the play again, and we're up against Ocean Soul 92, which I know from a lot of places, but I can't put them on the deck immediately. So I'm just playing them as whatever they are on. Here we have a hand that's just perfectly keepable. It's a Bauble Predict for some value, and then a Delver that's to put on some pressure. If they're on an unfair deck, this isn't the greatest hand, but this definitely isn't something I'm looking to mulligan. Here we don't flip our Delver, and we're just going to set up some value with our Mishra's Bauble. I'm looking at my own deck because I want to see whether it's worth predicting here or not. If there's a card on top that I think is very important, I might decide not to do it or to try and hit on their deck. They remove my first Delver, I find another one and ponder to set up the flip, so I'm pretty happy with that. They dazed my predict on the first turn, on my second turn, and I think that's, I can see why they do it, but it does put me in a great position, since that puts them down to 0 cards. To counter my 2-drop that wouldn't have any impact on the board, and of course drawing 2 cards is impactful, but this is basically them saying that they think they can have the game go long and don't want me to have card advantage. So what I should expect here, I don't know if I realize it at the moment, but what I should expect here is that they have a removal heavy hand, and they just are looking to trade as many resources as they can and don't expect to die quickly. So that's my read from that play. And let's see what happens here. So I play a second Delver and a Ponder to set it up. I flip it with a Swords of Plowshares, because that's of course a card I want to draw anyway, versus what I expect to be Delver. Here they have the second Lightning Bolt, but I can daze it, which again I think from at this point I'm pretty well set up. Here I have a chance to remove their Sprite Dragon, but I want to be able to put on pressure, so I decide not to do it. I know that I have 2 Skyclave Apparitions, and I think it's worth just trying to get the creatures out there. This does mean that I end up running into their daze, of course, which is a big shame here. They have a third Lightning Bolt, so as I expected, they're very heavy on removal. But I do have a removal for their threat as well. At the moment I'm pretty weak to them having anything, and as I don't have my third land for Skyclave, but I do top deck that, and now I know that I have removal for any immediate threats they put into play, like Dread or Reckiness. This is basically removal or bust, and here they show me that they're on a Stifle build, which we haven't been seeing a lot lately, which is why I didn't really realize that I had to play around it, but with the Cascade decks going around, Stifle has gotten a bit more value. I get to remove their creature by Force of Willing the Stifle, resolving the Skyclave Apparition. So that was, at that point I was pretty happy again, but of course with my empty hand, I'm pretty vulnerable to a Lightning Bolt, basically killing my Skyclave Apparition while also providing them pressure. I don't feel too far behind here, and I find a Ponder to see if I can find anything to interact with this. With this Ponder I see Island, Ponder and Daze. I think the Ponder is good, but because the other cards are 2 cards I don't want, I think it's better to shuffle here and just try and use my mana more effectively. So I expect that's what I do. I did, and I find a Clarion Spirit. Not ideal here, since it doesn't trigger if it's your second spell, but I still think it's better to just get it into play. So I can, if I find a cantrip, I can just try to double spell still. I don't want to trade it for the Illusion, as I think the Clarion Spirit is more valuable, but top decking a Daze doesn't help with that. So now I don't attack, since I'm looking to maybe trade it, since I'm as low as I am, but I also wanted to have more options available. They're so high on life total that if I can get it to a point where I have a Spirit remaining while trading for their Illusion, I think it's pretty good for me. I was a bit conservative here not to attack. I wasn't 100% sure, and I just wanted to see what they were doing in this turn cycle. So I saw Explosives in upkeep. I decided to go for the Sprite Dragon, since even just one spell makes it better than the illusion, and I'm not able to block it. I do decide because they don't play anything pre-combat, that I'm not gonna trade my Clarion Spirit and hope that I get to fire off my days on basically any spell. They end up just passing the turn. I find a Brainstorm, and here I would really love to find just any spell to play. That gives me a blocker, that gives me something to do. But I find another Daze in the Force of Will. Basically cards that don't impact the board here at all. And I find a Flooded Strand to shuffle them away, which is what I decide to do. But at this point I'm in dire straits. I think about blocking here for a second. Then I realized I'm not beating a Lightning Bolt from this spot anyway. So I'm just letting it through, and they have a Chain Lightning. They had already used 4 Lightning Bolts, which is definitely one of the reasons I considered not blocking there. They could have killed my Clarion Spirit pre-combat if they really want to make sure to get me dead. But I think I can't trade this off here and still have a realistic shot at winning this game. I think with 4 Lightning Bolts in the graveyard, I just have to hope that they're not finding any reach in the coming turns, and I get to stabilize with cantrips and making spirits with my Clarion Spirit. So sadly that didn't happen. They had the Chain Lightning, and I promptly lose this game. Then for game 2, we keep a hand. We mulligan to a hand with Clarion Spirit and 2 Baubles, which I think is pretty good to put on a lot of pressure. We do only have 1 land, so that's a bit of a risk, and that's why I fire off one of my Baubles immediately to see the top card of my deck, and see if I want to shuffle. Oh wait, no. I look at their deck because I know I'm going to fetch anyway, because I want to run out Delver of Secrets. And if I know that I'm going to fetch anyway, there's no reason to bubble myself. So I just get some information, see a Force of Will on top of their deck, and play my Delver. I don't flip my Delver, but I do find the second land, so I'm happy with that. At this point, I think I have a pretty strong curve out available to me. But I'm a bit wary about them passing with the Scalding Tarn open. It's pretty unlikely that they have nothing to do on turn 1. It is likely that they choose not to do anything because they want to threaten a Stifle. But I think them hitting a Stifle here is too punishing for me. And if I keep my Misty Rainforest incorrect, and they have to keep their Tarn incorrect, just to threaten the Stifle, even if they don't have it, I think that's good for me here. I have a Delver in play that can put on some pressure. So if we just basically both give up a land to keep the threat of them stifling my land open, I think that's fine for me. And of course, I would love to just curve out with Clarion Spirit and Mistress Bubble here, but I think the risk is too big, and because I have something going on board, I decide not to do it. And take the more conservative line that plays around Stifle, basically. They drop a second land. They still don't do anything, so here my suspicion of them having Stifle goes up. Sadly, I don't flip my Delver, but I do find another Delver, which I want to draw. So I don't fetch still. I just played out another Delver, and at this point I'm very happy with my lines of play. I think that being able to lock up one of my lands, to have them lock up one of their lands to either keep up or threaten the Stifle they might have, I think in this spot is very good for me. The issue, of course, is I'm not making my 3rd land drop, so I am tying up one of my 2 lands. They have a Lightning Bolt, so they fire that off, and here they cast a Dreadhorde Arcanist. I think this is an interesting spot, since I still want to keep my fetch land incorrect. While I also need both my mana if I want to use both of my removal spells. But because I have a Blue Elemental Blast in my hand, I don't necessarily need the Misty Rainforest to be correct. So I'm just going to try and play this game with us both locking up a land, but them hitting the third land and me not hitting my third land while they curve out into Arcanist does make this a spot a lot worse. So I see a Moorland Haunt here on top of my library with my Delver, and that's just a card that's not helping me at all in this spot. It's not helping me cast more spells, and it's not helping me do anything else. So I decide that, okay, I think I'm going to fall too far behind if what I'm trying to do in this spot isn't working. And I think the risk of having to fetch anyway if they have a daze for my Blue Elemental Blast and then having them stifle the land is even worse than trying to fetch first and see what's happening before I go into that line. So I decide to crack here so that I don't have to draw the Moorland Haunt. I thought I could Brainstorm, which isn't ideal, but it's always a good card, of course. Sadly for me, they have the Pyroblast for my Blue Elemental Blast. This means that I have to try and source Plowshares it. They don't have the days, but they do have a Force of Will, to which they pitch a second Force of Will. And from this point on, I'm in a pretty bad spot. They get the first attack off with their Dreadhorde Arcanist, also growing their Sprite Dragon into a 3/3. I do find another land, but this is basically what Dreadhorde Arcanist does to these matchups. I have a Clarion Spirit and the spell to fire off after it, which would be pretty good to stabilize any board state that just has a couple of creatures on it that aren't doing too much. But because my opponent has Dreadhorde Arcanist, I can't risk that. I can't do that. I can't let them untap with a Dreadhorde Arcanist. So what I have to do is just spend my turn and all my resources I can to try and find an answer to the Dreadhorde. I fire off a Ponder, which doesn't find what I want. So I decide to shuffle my library. I draw a fetch land, which is fine here. That means that if I find a remove spell with my Brainstorm, I can still play it around days. But yeah, it's not what I was looking for. Luckily, with my Brainstorm, I do find the source of Plowshares, so that means that I'm no longer under the immediate threat of Dreadhorde Arcanist, and I find something to do afterwards. I boarded in the Lavinias because I thought that it was good enough to have it stop all of their counter spells and shut off Dreadhorde Arcanist. So it's just another way to not have them run away with the game with the Dreadhorde Arcanist per se, but I'm not sure that's good enough. All of their removal spells, including the Pyroblast, remove the Lavinia, and I can never get into a spot where I let them have their Dreadhorde Arcanist because I have a Lavinia, since that's way too dangerous of a spot. So I'm not sure it's actually worth bringing in. I did bring it in this case over Force of Wills, since I just wanted to try how it played out in this matchup. So I find those, but I'm very happy with the source of Plowshares. I don't expect them to have days here, since they Force of Wills last turn on my when I tapped out for the removal spell on their previous Arcanist. So I decided I don't need the fetch land and just put that away. I get hit here with the Sprite Dragon, which is of course pretty big issue since it's a 3/3 now, but it grows out of Ethereal Forager range with anything they do. And I decide that Lavinia would stop me them from Force of Willing, which was a pretty strong consideration to run it out first. But with the Sprite Dragon in play and it growing with every spell that I play, I think the risk, I don't have time to just wait for casting my Ethereal Forager. Like if I play Lavinia here first, I take at least 3 damage, but probably 4, like any spell puts them to 4 damage. Which hits me down to 7, and then I still don't have anything in play that blocks the Lavinia. Blocks the Sprite Dragon. I just have a Lavinia that attacks for 2 and stops them from playing Force of Wills. Then I have to play my Forager, which still doesn't block the Sprite Dragon, and the Sprite Dragon hits me at least to 3. In this case, I assume that they play one spell and put it to a 4/4, so all I can do is jump there or go to 3 life. Then I can attack with my Terrier Forager if it still lives and gets the Source of Plowshares, but I already lose to basically anything they can have at that point, and I don't think that's worth it. I think here I have to go for the Terrier Forager before the Lavinia just to try and get the Source of Plowshares out of my graveyard back as fast as possible. In this case, I do go for that line, but they force a will it with a Brazen Borer, so I don't think anything I would have done would have necessarily mattered. I can make a Lavinia there first, but then with Brazen Borer, there's just no way that I just don't die in the air. So here you can see I boarded out all my Force of Wills and Force of Negations. I'm not sure that's worth it. I boarded in, let's see, I still have all my Graveyard Hate there. So I boarded into Blue Elemental Blast, Apato Exile, and the 2 Lavinias, as well as 1 Court, the 2 white and 2 colorless Court. My guess is that we both have a lot of removal post board, but especially them having both a bunch of Fire Blasts and all their bolts means that it's very hard for me to stick creatures. So I was hoping that they would be removal heavy enough that I could steal a game with the Court. But as you can see, I didn't. I'm gonna die here pretty badly. I get to take another turn by making a blocker with Moorland Haunt, which they raid, putting this in up to a 6/6, so I don't even get another draw step. I think this was a pretty interesting game. I was losing very badly. I don't think this matchup is great for me. Dreadhorde Arcanist is just so good at running away with the game. While I have only have 4 removal in my main board, while normal Delver decks have 6 removal spells for the Dreadhorde Arcanist. I get to up that to 5, but normally in blue-red you get to add a Braids and go up to 7 or 8 removal spells. So being quite low on removal spells makes this matchup a lot harder, and I think that favors our opponent for sure. And it showed. We got crushed even with the Arcanist only getting 1 attack in. We had to spend all our resources we had to try and get rid of it, while we had a bunch of creatures that did a lot less. So that was it for this round. We got crushed by Ocean Soul, and let's see you for the next round.